I'm gonna piss off a couple of people here, but I'm gonna do it. G'day guys, today I'm with my best friend Scamfish, and today we're gonna be doing something a little bit different. So we're gonna rank every farmable in the game. Well, not every farmable because there's like over 100. Just look at this list. It's insanely long. So what we're going to actually do is rank the most popular farmables in the game. And at the end, we're going to see what are the best and worst farmables. Let's go. Okay, so these are all the farmables we're going to be ranking. I've grouped a couple of them together. Like this red block, that represents all colored blocks, for example. But I'll say each meaning when I get to them. So yeah, let's get right into it. So F ranked farmables. I think there's actually no F ranked farmables. Now let's go to the E tier. We're gonna bring grass into this. So grass doesn't just represent grass, it represents all those cheap farmable items that don't really give much gems, but are really good when you're starting out. So if you're a new player, stuff like grass, lava, platforms, stuff like that, it's really good. But once you get further and further into the game, they don't really help you at all, unless you use them for mass producing, which is why they're ranked in the E tier. Next, I'm gonna do lattice background. When I was a noob, this was probably my favorite farmable. I just farmed this non-stop. But today, the price has just dropped too much. It's not worth farming. The grow time is about 1 hour, so you can actually farm it about 5 or 6 times a day. Yeah, but other than that, it's not a great farmable. It doesn't give much gems, and there's not much profit in farming lattice background these days. Okay, next. Similar to lattice background, music notes. There used to be huge profit in music notes. It wasn't about the gems they gave you, it was about the world locks. The blocks used to be 40 per world lock, but now it's over 100 per world lock, which is really cheap. It just makes it not worth farming, you know? If you want to make a song in one of your worlds, sure, you can spend 1 world lock on some notes and just farm them. But if you want to actually profit, I don't suggest farming music notes, and that's why they're ranked in the E tier. And looking at the list, that's all that's in the E tier. Let's move up to D. The first farmable that's going in the D tier is the red block. And this actually represents all colored blocks. And the reason it's above grass, lattice background, and music notes is because a lot of people use it for mass producing. And also, some of them are really expensive, like blue blocks, purple blocks, even the dark colored blocks, so expensive. And also, a lot of people need them for mass producing, which makes them pretty valuable, and the price won't really drop too much in the long term. When you plant the trees, they also grow really fast, depending on the color, but generally colored blocks don't take too long. You can farm them multiple times per day, and that's why it's in the D tier. The next farmable that's going in the D tier, you might not expect, but it's the treasure chest. What? Okay, a lot of you might disagree with me on this, but the treasure chest, I think, is the most overrated farmable. From personal experience, every time I've tried to farm the treasure chest, if I plant like 50 seeds, I will either drop about 5 seeds, so I'll end up at 45 seeds, or it'll increase by 1 or 2 seeds. And for me, it's just not worth the profit. Sure, it gives a lot of gems, but really, I wouldn't suggest anyone farming this. The trees take ages to grow, it takes about 4 hits to break, and the seed count doesn't actually increase that much. This is the most overrated farmable in my opinion. Moving on, the next farmable in the D tier is the gold block. You normally see gold blocks and steel blocks in free BFG worlds, and there's a reason for that. They don't give much gems, but they give lots of seeds, they're expensive, it's so annoying to break. It's probably the farmable that takes the most hits to break, which is why it's always a free BFG world when you have to break gold. All the profit with gold blocks comes from the seed gain. It's pretty expensive, which means even if you profit 4 or 5 seeds, that's about a world lock profit. So that's why gold blocks are in the D tier. If it was easier to break, it would be C or maybe even a B tier farmable, but because it's so annoying to break, it's staying in the D tier. And the last block that's in the D tier is sugarcane. Sugarcane, it's okay for new players, I guess. It's really easy to break and it gives a good amount of gems, but really there's not much profit from sugarcane these days. The seeds and the blocks are just way too cheap. So you would have to farm 100 seeds, probably 2 or 3 times, just to see 1 world lock profit, not including the gems, which is why it's staying in the D tier. So the last item in the D tier, Rochambeau. The Rochambeau block is really similar to the treasure chest. You get heaps of gems, but you don't always see seed profit. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. It's a bit more risky than farming something like gold or sugarcane, which is why it's staying in the D tier. And now we're moving up to the C tier. Okay, so the first block in the C tier is going to be high-tech blocks. They're really hard to break. It takes a long time just to break 1 block, and a lot of people will prefer other farmables on this list, but they give a lot of gems. You will always profit in seeds, and you will always get a huge amount of gems. It's as simple as that. Okay, the next farmable on this list is ladders. Ladders are pretty expensive, probably the same price as high-tech block, or similar price. The seed gain is pretty good, the trees grow really fast, but the gems isn't that much. So most of the profit from farming ladders comes from selling the extra seeds rather than profiting with gems. This makes it a pretty unique farmable, but it also means it can't be ranked higher. Next up is Venus Skytrap. It gives heaps of gems, the trees grow faster than 24 hours, and you're always gonna profit heaps of seeds. The downside of farming these is that they're pretty annoying to farm, especially if you just have a basic farm with platforms, you know, the old school farming method. You're gonna be dying a lot, so you need checkpoints in your world. Yeah, they're just a bit annoying to break. However, you will always profit heaps of seeds, and you will also get heaps of gems, which is why they're in the C tier. Next up in the C tier is ice. Ice might be one of the most underrated farmables in the game. It's got a pretty high price. This means that a little bit of seeds is still a lot of profit, but at the same time, it doesn't give heaps of gems. But the reason it's in the C tier is because the trees grow extremely fast, and also if you're patient and you keep farming them until Winterfest, when the prices rise so much, you're actually going to see heaps of profit. You're going to profit even more than probably the B tier farmables. But the reason they're in the C tier is because you need to be really patient with ice. If you want to maximize your profit, you can't sell any ice until Winterfest. And that's the reason they're staying in the C tier. Okay, the last farmable in the C tier is the Space Connector. This is another farmable where you don't really see much of it anymore, but it is a good farmable. It takes about 4 hits to break. The trees grow in 22 hours, so you can farm them every day. It gives heaps of gems, and you always get seed profit. Really, the only problem with the Space Connector is that it's hard to sell. It's hard to find buyers for it. And skipping straight to the B tier, Fish Tank. Extremely easy to break. In my opinion, the most satisfying block to break. It feels like it breaks in 2 hits, but it's probably 3 hits. From personal experience, the seed gain for fish tanks is the highest seed gain out of any farmable. The problem is, now it's extremely cheap. So even though the seed gain is the highest, you're not profiting that much from the extra seeds just because it's such a cheap farmable. However, it still is my personal favorite. This is almost the perfect farmable. Heaps of gems, heaps of seed gain, and fast growing trees. Okay, the next items in the B tier, I'm about to piss off a lot of people. I'm gonna do it. The Sorcerer's Stone and Chandelier, both in the B tier. And I'm gonna tell you why. They both take over 1 week to grow. Did you hear that? Over 1 week. That is way too long for a farmable to grow. Unless you're extremely rich and you plant them every day in 7 different farms, I do not suggest farming these. Even if you are extremely rich, I wouldn't suggest farming these. I think there's better options, which you're gonna see in the A and the S tier. These simply are overrated farmables. The seed gain is not even great. If you're a new player and you want to farm Chandelier or Sorcerer's Stone, if you really have to, I would suggest Chandelier, but I wouldn't suggest farming them. Considering they take over 1 week to grow, the seed gain isn't enough, and that's why they're in the B tier. Next up in the B tier is the Director's Chair. Yeah, for similar reasons to the Chandelier and Sorcerer's Stone, it takes 3 days to grow. Not many people farm it, which means it's hard to buy and hard to sell. I think on average, it'll give about 10 to 15 gems, which definitely isn't bad, which is why it's in the B tier, but it just takes too long to grow. And also, it looks like it would be really easy to break, but for some reason, it takes 5 to 6 hits to break, which is really bad. That's why it's in the B tier. Okay, these last ones are getting a bit hard to rank, so I'll do them in a random order. So the laser grid, definitely going in the A tier. It's very similar to the director's chair, however, the gems is a little bit higher, and also it takes one less hit to break. Sure, sometimes you can die when you're breaking laser grids, but at the end of the day, it's worth dying a couple of times to get all that gem and seed profit. It's simply just a good farmable. It's basically a chandelier, but it takes half the time to grow. And this is why it's in the A tier. Okay, I've made up my mind about Pinball and Pepper, and they're staying in the B tier. Both of them. Pepper Tree is another one of my personal favorites, just because it's extremely easy to break, you get heaps of gems, and the trees take about 1 day to grow, which is very good for a farmable that gives that many gems. However, it's just too cheap right now, and you don't get enough extra seeds to profit heaps of world locks. With Pepper Tree, most of your profit comes from the gems you get. And that's extremely similar to the Pinball. If I'm being completely honest, it's my personal least favorite farmable. Oh my god, farming it is so annoying. It's so hard to break. You bounce off it all the time. To me, bouncing off that Pinball is worse than dying from like a Venus Flytrap or a laser grid. So you can't just hold down the right arrow and spam click, because you're gonna keep bouncing into the Pinball. You have to watch your screen the entire time, and they're hard to break, and it takes about 2 days to grow. And that's why it's in the B tier. If you're a new player, I would suggest anything in the B tier. Personally, I would say Fish Tank. So Fish Tank, just because you can farm it every day, I would suggest that if you're a new player. Okay, the remaining two. I don't think a lot of people know about this farmable, but it's extremely good. It gives about the same gems as Pinball, but it takes 4 hits to break. It takes about 1.5 days to grow, but the price is about 30 per world lock. That means if you get 10 extra seeds, that's 1 world lock profit, plus all the gems you would get from it too. It gives heaps of gems, the price is very high, and not many people know about it. So if you want to start farming Starship Floor Drill, I would suggest farming it as soon as possible, before more and more people start farming it, and before the price drops too much. So that's why it's in the A tier. And last but definitely not least, Magic Ball. Magic Ball, it could be an S tier if it didn't take so long to grow. Basically, it's what Chandelier used to be. The price is still very expensive, which means you profit so much from a little bit of seeds. The gems is so much, sometimes you're getting 20 gems just from 1 block. The only reason it's in A tier rather than S tier is because it takes a week to grow. Right now, if you're a pro and you want to farm something, I would suggest anything in the A tier. If you're a new player, definitely start in the A tier. Personally, I would say grass. Farm that until you have about 4 world locks, and then I would go to the B tier, something like Fish Tank. And then when you have about 100 world locks, I would invest in something like the Fire Grill or the Laser Grid. Personally, 7 days is just too long for me, but also if you're rich enough to plant a certain amount of seeds in 7 different farm worlds, which means you can farm it every day, that's gonna be a ton of profit. You're gonna definitely profit the most from Magic Balls. And yeah, that's my list. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this type of video and want me to rank something else, like legendary items or something like that, leave a comment below. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Stay classy, guys.
I've been feeling down on these nights lately, but I know that I got so much to give. Never forget, but I can learn to